So, like all good Texas A&M events, they only start one way. Howdy. So I'm going to lead by example here, and I'm going to silence my cell phone. That was more than a hint. Please silence your cell phone. We do have a photographer that's taking pictures, so please no recording or pictures. You'll have an opportunity to get something. The purpose of this evening's event is a wonderful opportunity for us, for our students, to have a conversation with the ambassador from Ukraine. I'm Jay Silveria. I'm the executive director of the Bush School of Washington, D.C., and welcome to a special evening and a conversation with the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States, Oksana Markarova. Under the Diana Davis Spencer Program in National Security and Intelligence, we are pleased to offer our students unique opportunities like this evening. I'd like to offer a special thanks to the Diana Davis Spencer Foundation for their continued support and generosity. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce a few of our guests that are here with us this evening. First and foremost, we have some group of students. We have two student programs from the Bush School, an Executive Master's of Public Service Administration, and we have our students here that are in the Washington, D.C. program. So I'd like all of you, please raise your hands. Those are our master's students. We also have a group of exceptional 30 high school seniors who are top of their class type students as part of an International Leadership of Texas program with an interest in diplomacy and international relations. Where are you? Here we go. Thank you. And seated up front, one of our wonderful friends of the Bush School and my own personal hero, I guess, General Michael Hayden, the former director of CIA and director of NSA, and his wife, Janine. Thank you, sir. I'll also tell you that we're safe in here this evening because we have two sergeant at arms. We have retired General William Walker, the former House Sergeant at Arms. And we have with us the current Senate Sergeant at Arms and my battle buddy, retired General Karen Gibson. Where is she, Karen? And the last I heard, he was parking his car, but is General Downs, did he make it? General Mike Downs, the Vice Director of the Joint Staff, is here.
Right here.
The Executive Director of the Spy Museum and a great friend of the Bush School, Chris Costa. Thank you for being here, Chris. And we also have Dr. Elsa Morano, who directs the Borlaug Institute at Texas A&M University. Dr. Morano, thank you for being here. And then up front also, Linda Weisgold, a former CIA Deputy Director for Analysis. Ma'am, thank you for being here. So, our program will last about an hour. There's class at 6:30 if any of you would like to join the students at class. We'll have some opening remarks from the ambassador, followed by a moderated conversation with question and answer with the professor that I'll introduce. And we have a number of questions that were submitted by our students and others that were submitted in advance that the moderator will go through. Our moderator tonight is Dr. Katarina Shinkaruk. She's a senior lecturer here at the Bush School in DC, where she teaches Eastern European politics, European security, and international relations theory. She is also a scholar at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and has more than 15 years of experience in academia, think tanks, and diplomatic missions. Our special guest for tonight is Ambassador Oksana Markarova, who is the appointed Ukrainian's ambassador to the United States in April of 2021. She previously served Ukraine's Ministry of Finance. Among many other things, she is credited with opening public finance data and improving Ukraine's international data transparency. Madam Ambassador, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to make some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, General. It's such a pleasure to be in such a distinguished group of people, in addition to students. Really, it's an honor to address and have this discussion here at the Bush School of Government and Public Service. I'm a graduate of Indiana School of Public Administration, and it's the best probably time in anyone's life when you really can study and enjoy this intellectual start of your life. And it's very important, everything that everyone who's from master programs and others are here. Please learn, study, talk to all the people, to wonderful people who are in the audience today. Those are rare occasions when you can learn from so many wonderful people, and we all count on you, because clearly with all the wars and the war in Ukraine, our generations, the previous generations, did not do what we had to do in order to prevent it. So now, of course, the goal is to win and to finish this war, but we count on all the young people to make better world for the future. The Texas A&M University, and I really hope that I will be able to visit the campus in Houston and travel to Texas, which is in plans actually, but it is a great school and is also named after a great person. President Bush believed that men and women of character can make a difference in their states and in other countries. And this is the moment in which we live, where I think we all understand this is very true. And this is our duty to make a difference. Over the past 25 years, the school educated several generations now of public servants. And I just want to name a few who, because we're very glad that in the fall of 2022, the first faculty member from Ukraine, actually, Dr. Katerina Shenkaruk, joined the Bush School. And what she's teaching here is a very important subject, which not only was not taught in a number of Western countries, but actually Russia never studied. That's why they miscalculated gravely, because they have no idea who Ukrainians are, who other nations in the Eastern Europe are, and that we are not all Russians. And it was a surprise for them for some reason. So the Eastern European politics and European security, and I would even dare to say that it's very much related not only to transatlantic security, but to global security, is a topic of today. And the more we learn from this war, the more we learn from what led to this war, the better we can restore the international architecture, the security architecture, and actually, again, return to the time of peace, which has been a basis for the prosperity of all of our countries. Just the 70, 80 years of peace after the World War II have created the basis for the development and innovations and everything else. Also in the school, you have two Ukraine-born professors in the School of Medicine, Doctors Israel Liberson and Tatiana Nicholson. I don't know if they're here with us, but they have joined efforts with several other US universities, also with my alma mater back home, the National University of Kyiv Mohyla Academy, where Dr. Shenkaruk also taught. And they implemented with our First Lady a very big program on supporting the mental health. An initiative to support the mental health, again, important in every country, but in Ukraine now, when we all are affected by this war, from children to all the civilians, to people on the battlefield, is very important in order to be able, again, to get back to normal after we win. Also, the Ukrainian community and supporter gather on the campus of Texas A&M, and we actually get all this info from my consul general, how much the university does in order to not only raise the awareness, but really support Ukraine, organize different type of events, support Ukrainians in the US, but also support Ukrainians back home. So I would like to thank everyone for all the support. It really means a lot to us. Every Ukrainian flag that you put in addition to American flag, and we know how much your flags mean to you. And every time I hear and listen to the Ukrainian anthem, and I hear, that I saw that our flag was still there, it feels like I said it a number of times as a very Ukrainian anthem. You know, this is our reality now. This is the fight where every time our boys and girls report from the battlefield that there is Ukrainian flag either returned to some village or they have seen it at the end of the battle, this is the biggest joy, because we know that every inch of land that we liberated is the life saved, is the people who are not tortured or killed while under occupation. And unfortunately, this is what happens there. You know, we all read the horrible news, and thanks to the brave reporters, we can actually read it and see it sometimes online. But the number of atrocities and war crimes that have been committed already during this very difficult 568 days now have been beyond any imagination. And this should not happen not only in Ukraine or in Europe in the 21st century. This should not happen anywhere in any part of the world. So that's why, you know, of course, I'm the ambassador of Ukraine. So every time you hear me speak, I say how grateful we are for all the support, and I ask for more weapons, and I ask for more support, and I ask for more sanctions for Russia so that we can win. Because this is the only way how we can win. Because this is the only way how you can deal with bullets. But it's also not only about us. And it's also about all other countries who have aggressive neighbors, who have the aggressive neighbors who actually are looking at this conflict and calculating whether they can do it to their neighbors, whether it's in Asia or Africa or Latin America or anywhere else. And just 2 days ago, we had a big reception and celebrated, even though I know during the wartime, the word celebration is something, you know, difficult to use, but celebrated our 32nd anniversary of the renewed independence. And I quoted my president, Zelensky, who said that today we defend something much bigger than Ukraine's territory and our independence. Today we defend our moral space. And when I say our, I don't mean only Ukrainian, because everything that is said about Ukraine or done about Ukraine in this war either has this moral basis, either is about dignity and freedom and independence, or demonstrate the shocking lack of that morality. And our victory depends on our ability to stand together, and our victory depends on our joint ability with all our strategic friends, especially the US, to stay morally mobilized, or as military people would say, and I always find it so comforting to be around people who were in the military, because everything is so clear in the military. So they say you have to stay the course, you know, and this is very clear. You cannot start looking for off ramps or saving somebody's face, or, you know, you have to liberate your territory. You know how to do it, and you have to stay the course, and you have to end it, and you have to finish it, and you have to liberate your homes, and you have to liberate your loved ones. And you have to show that we democracies, and even though Ukraine might not be a perfect democracy yet, but we are working on it, we are fighting for it. We went through 2 revolutions in Ukraine because we wanted to be democratic. And in democracies, we know that we can deliver better to our people, but we also have to show that we can defend ourselves. So this is a test of our lifetime. And this is something that we have to study. And this is what we have to learn from. But for us Ukrainians, we have to win this first, this existential fight. So thank you. Thank you for finding time for this. I know you could have done many things with your evenings, and I look forward to our discussion.
Madam Ambassador, thank you so much for your important remark and for your kind words about the Bush School. And thank you, of course, for joining us for this conversation tonight. We were so much looking forward to it. There is a lot of admiration for you in Ukraine and in the United States as a wartime diplomat for over 18 months now. And Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba recently described Ukraine's wartime diplomacy as a quote unquote whatever works approach. Obviously meaning the unconventional and creative ways. So I would like to ask you, what is your take on wartime diplomacy, and what does this unconventional approach mean for your daily work?
Thank you. Yes, well, when President Zelensky asked me to serve as ambassador to the United States, and it was at the end of 2020, and I arrived here in April 2021. And of course, the war was still there because, Russia attacked us in 2014. We had a period of the hot war in Crimea and Donbass, the Donetsk and Lugansk, and then there was Minsk Accords, but Russia never implemented them fully. So there was always, we lost 14,000 people until this full-fledged war because of the shootings, because of the, the war was there, but it was contained. And of course, and I'm not a diplomat by training. I'm a financier. I went to serve the country as the Minister of Finance, Deputy Minister, and then Minister, which was actually presented to me by then Minister of Finance as my draft. And she said, you have to go. It was 2015. The country was robbed blind before in 2013 when President Yanukovych and all this pro-Russian government fled the country after four full years of really not only destroying our armed forces, destroying our secret service, but also robbing the country blind. We literally in 2014 had a day when we had 10,000 euro on a single treasury account of the country of more than 35 million. So she asked me to come to help for 1 year. She said, it's a draft, people go and fight on the front lines. We should do what we have to do. And there were a number of people from business and from NGOs who came to government for the first time. Little did I know that I would stay for 5 years at the Ministry of Finance. But then I thought I returned back to normal life. And when President Zelensky asked me to serve again, and I thought, maybe I can help to develop strategic relations, investments, something with the cooperation with the US, and then the war started. So now I know as much about different type of munitions as I knew before about the financial stuff. But what our foreign minister said, and actually this unconventional, I would say, and very creative diplomacy, which started from President Zelensky, actually, the first day of the full-fledged phase of the war, when he took his phone and he said by the video message, I'm here, I'm not, let me tell you, we're not going to surrender, we're not going to give up, we all will fight. I'm here, the Prime Minister is here, everyone is here. And then he started doing it on a daily basis, twice a day, sometimes even more, communicating with Ukrainian people, but also communicating with the world, talking, doing something that was not conventional for the president. And then we all started doing something that was not conventional for diplomats, because you cannot wait for the meeting. You cannot wait. When you are on the battlefield, you need to rally your allies. You need to talk to your friends and partners. You need to get the information out. And yes, sometimes you have to be inconvenient. And sometimes you have to be very truthful. And sometimes this is a very inconvenient truth. But then you know that back home, lives of people depend on you. And then you do whatever it takes, diplomacy, of course, because nobody will ever judge you by something that you have done efficiently and effectively, but maybe not polite enough or by the book enough. But if we will not do something, and because of that people will die, or because of that we will not liberate faster, or because of that we will not get some capabilities as fast as we need, that is going to have an existential problems and results. So I think, again, there will be a lot of lessons learned, and we see already how diplomacy globally is changing because of how Ukraine is doing it. We see more and more first, presidents and prime ministers entering the meetings, not in the suits and ties, Even the wardrobe is changing, whereas for us it was, for President Zelensky and others, that was a necessity. I mean, if you live in the bunker and you live in your office, and it's easier to have, a number of the war type clothes, and this is especially if you go to the front line, and plus it's very comfortable frankly, I never thought before also that I would say that the military clothes would become, but it's actually very comfortable clothes. So but yes, it's some of it, of course, it's very much war related, but some of it, I would argue, we actually have to use even without war. That in a diplomacy, as much as in public administration, sometimes we're using the old rules and old blueprints, and the world is changing, either through the social media, whether we will like it or not, or the innovations, and we have to adapt. And I remember when after business, I came to the Ministry of Finance, and I always was saying that we're always behind, business is always, especially like in the tax area, business will always find like gazillion of ways how not to pay taxes in a very legal way. And government is always behind because, it's just, so we have to develop and adapt. So public administration have to also evolve. And I think this wartime diplomacy might be a good example of how to do it, even during the peaceful times.
Thank you very much. And I know that you have been in August for the ambassadors conference in Kyiv, and you had also consultations with the president, with the leadership of the country, the military leadership. What are some of your key takeaways from that meeting? And if you could talk a little bit more on Ukraine priority for the Washington summit of NATO in 2024, which is a big priority, of course. And we know that Ukraine is working for allies to agree and conditions to be met to get the Ukraine's invitation. So maybe you could discuss a little bit more on that.
Thank you. There are three questions in that one question. Yes. So first, I was lucky to actually be back home at the beginning of August for this ambassadors, the chief of missions conference, and it's very needed. Like during the time not only of war, but in general, we had this annual conferences for ambassadors to come back, and it's good because it's like 2 days when the president, prime minister, all key ministers, our chief Chod Zaluzhny, minister of defense, there was the head of Air Force, head of Navy. So we have this very specific closed, behind the closed door interactions, where not only we listen what they have to tell us, but we also tell them, and we discuss among each other. And there's so much interrelations now in this world. So it's always very useful. And that meeting, usually we had it in December, but the reason why President Zelensky decided to actually do it in August, so that we all will get together and coordinate before the political season starts in all the capitals in September. And this is a very important political season in so many countries, including the United States. So it was very useful. It was good to coordinate. It actually re-energized a lot of projects. We had excellent session, of course, with the First Lady. And I also came back just recently. I just came back 1 week ago from Ukraine because of Secretary Blinken's visit, which was a very, very good visit. It was a 2-day visit. For the first time, the cabinet level official actually stayed for 2 days and slept in Kyiv. And again, we have to be always thankful to the US. We are able to do that because of Patriots. I mean, an excellent capability that is protecting the sky above Kyiv, and we can, it's still war, but at least we can come back to some level of normalcy. I mean, I live on the outskirts of Kyiv in Bucha administratively, in the northernmost part, the little village there. And when the interceptors shut down the missiles, it's very loud. Of course, I mean, I heard it with my own. I even recorded it on my phone because I saw Shahid drones during the previous visits, but this was like very loud, and you could almost like feel the vibration. but then you know you are safe. You know that this is the sound, the war sound, but it's the war sound that is not the scary one. It's the one when you are like, it's working, you know, we've been protected. So coming back to, you know, of course, we discussed during that meeting, and we continue to discuss on what are the strategic goals for all of us together. And to win the war is the ultimate strategic goal now. But even now, we're not only talking about how to win the war, and that's very specific, right? The capabilities, the political track, the sanctions, the support to Ukraine, the new supplementary budget, which we really pray and hope that the Senate and the House, the Congress will support, because we count on this support. I mean, we are fully dependent now on our partners until we can win and get back on our feet. And actually, the faster we win, the faster we will stop needing the external help. But also, while talking about that, we're talking about what's next, you know, in every sphere. So how do we get all the capabilities we need now? But at the same time, how do we build the endurance strength for the future? How do we build the future force of Ukraine? And then how do we talk about reconstruction? Not only mending what we need for the life now, you know, the destroyed energy, but we already adopted, and I know a lot of people find it, you know, surprising or even amazing, that we have adopted our 10-year energy strategy, and we already are thinking how we will change the mix. We will develop a little bit more of our nuclear, we'll replace the coal mines with the renewables, so that we will come out from this stronger than we used to be before the war, so that we can leapfrog into this future Ukraine, which is going to be not only better country for Ukrainians, but also a good partner and interoperable country with European Union and with NATO. And NATO is a very important strategic goal, not because we want NATO to defend us. I mean, of course, it's a defense alliance and all countries in NATO count on each other to defend each other. But at this point, we also have a lot to add to NATO. Ukraine has very strong, battle-tested, one of the largest armies. And, you know, all these people, we now, it's about 1 million people who went through the armed forces now. So our estimate, after the first phase of the war, we had 400,000 veterans. After this phase of the war, if for example, we win now, we will have about 3 to 4 million veterans or the immediate members of the veterans' families. Some of the people, and I have to tell you, I spoke with some of my friends who I never thought would volunteer and go work to the front lines, including women, you know. Some women from business, some they volunteer, they're really on the battlefield. And some of them really found their new passion in it. They're not just doing it to defend the country now, but they are ready to do it and to continue, you know, developing the Ukrainian force after we win. And this is something I think that Ukraine can offer to the world. This could be an important element of transatlantic security. Because again, unfortunately, after we win, Russia is not going to move anywhere. You know, and unless the people of Russia, and again, it's up to them, it's not up to us. As all democratic countries, we're not going to tell them what to do, right? But unless they, like Germany after the World War II, they go through the process of realizing what they have done and changing this imperialistic mentality and changing the idea that they can conquer the neighbors, whether it's us or Georgia or Baltic states, it doesn't matter. Then they will always be a source of threat. And we together will have to be able to at least prevent, if not respond to that source of threat. And plus, if we're talking about the reconstruction of Ukraine, and you know, today great news, the new envoy, the special representative for Ukraine economic recovery was appointed, Penny Pritzker. But every time we talk to business, and economic recovery is not possible without massive participation of compliant big business in this recovery. And by the way, we count on Texas on that, because the energy and agriculture are the key areas of Ukraine future development and innovation. But security is a very important element of that recovery. And nothing can be a better security than the NATO membership. Now, Ukrainian people, the majority of Ukrainian people support it and want it. It's in our constitution. We all understand that there are a number of reforms we have to do in order to get there. So nobody is talking about, bypassing the reforms. We all understand that, we have to win, but there is no alternative path for us than a future membership in European Union and NATO. So that is the expectation leading towards the Washington summit. And we will work very actively with the administration, with Congress, with all the community, whether it's Ukrainian or others, in order to convince that this is time to send a resounding message to Russia that they will not bully any of us, including the members of NATO. And we also have to stop talking about NATO expansion, because NATO never expanded. It's the individual countries that wanted to be members of the countries with the same values. And like Finland and Sweden joined recently, we would be honored and proud to be the 33.
Yes, indeed, very much. We, Ukraine and its people, and I can second that, are very grateful for all the military, humanitarian, and financial assistance the United States has been providing. But against this background, there are questions about whether Ukraine has seen the same level of support from the European countries, the major states, and what, in your assessment, is the current state of assistance from the European partners? And do you see a growth or decrease in such support?
Mm-hmm. So at the beginning of this, of course, US has led the effort in so many areas. And if we look at the three types of assistance that we are getting, the security and defense, budget support, and humanitarian support, from the very beginning, US has been leading in defense and budget. And European Union from the very beginning actually was leading in humanitarian, because it's all the European countries that opened their literally borders and doors and homes and took more than 6 million of our, I always don't like to call them refugees because we want all of them back. So we call them the temporary displaced people.
Yes.
Or like people like the president of Poland calls them, he calls them our Ukrainian guests. Yes. Which is also great, So, but imagine for any country to take millions of citizens, primarily women and children. And yes, right now, after 17 months, the majority of them, and we are very glad, they're actually working, so they're not the burden. But still, for any healthcare, for any educational system, to have this influx of people within 1 month is a great expense. And European Union countries took that expense and started spending a lot of money on it. And when people were comparing, the new money in the budget provided to Ukraine, of course, it looked like European Union is not doing a lot. But if you count all these resources that they had to spend to support us, it's huge. Now, this year, the situation is on the security assistance, of course, US will always be number one. I mean, there is no other country in the world that can compare to the US in the defense capability and might. And this is where, again, we are cooperating a lot. And US is number one, but then the UK and some other European countries, and not only European countries, are providing more and more also of this assistance. On the budget front, European Union is becoming the number one. So after we became candidate to the European Union, if you look at the American assistance, the direct budget assistance, it was 1.5 billion per month, approximately in 2022. It's about 1.1, 1.2 per month now. And so there is like a decrease by months of the support. Again, we're very grateful for all the support, don't get me wrong, but we see the increase of the European. So European Union has provided us with 18 billion euros this year. And now we're working on a comprehensive 50 billion package, which is a multi-year, 4-year package, but we are working to front load it for the next year. and that will make European Union one of the biggest supporters. And we are able to work on this facility with European Union because we became candidate to the European Union, because we implement now all the reforms on our path to become the member of the European Union. So it's a European facility through which they will keep supporting us. And that does not exclude also the additional support from the countries on the in other areas. Also, European Union, especially Netherlands, together with and Germany, together with the US, are leading in the justice effort. So the International Office for the Aggression Tribunal in The Hague, massive work with us on evidence collection. The DOJ is doing, by the way, a remarkable job in that regard, and Department of State Special Envoy Ambassador Van Skak. They're working with our Prosecutor General because we have more than 100,000 cases of war crimes opened in Ukraine and not only investigated, but prosecuted and even heard by the courts now. We have more than 15 countries that open their own criminal investigations, and we cooperate with them and share the evidence. We have cases in all major 3 international courts. And you heard about one of them in particular, ICC, that has indicted Putin and Lvova Belova for the abduction of Ukrainian children. And this is a horrendous crime. And we're working to create the tribunal on aggression, which actually is the most documented crime because war criminal Putin decided to very publicly attack us. So he made sure that he made the decision to start the military operation, or so he called it. He made sure that his National Security Council did it on tape. So it's just a question of finding the right venue to have the tribunal. And as soon as we have it, and as soon as we have the venue that actually can resolve the immunity of the president and foreign minister, because ICC can help with that, but they do not have the jurisdiction over the crime of aggression. Some courts have the jurisdiction of the crime of aggression, but they're local courts, so they cannot deal with the immunity of the head of state. But I'm sure we will find the way how to do it. And there will be a day when we will see all of them on the bench, either in The Hague or in other places. So there is a lot of work, and in some areas, European Union support is actually increasing. In some areas, the US support is still in the lead, but we also have to be very clear, I think, talking to our citizens about that support. So it's not just support to Ukraine. It's actually support to all of us. So I just recently visited the plant in Lima, Ohio, which produces Abrams tanks, which we love, great capability. But that money that Congress allowed to spend on this capability, we are not the ones who are getting the money. We got the goods and the excellent capability. But there were jobs created in Lima to do this additional work. And when I met with workers there, they all have been so proud that they are helping us to fight for our land, but they also have jobs in their constituency. And there are so many producers, actually, that are producing more because of that. So, and there are so many of them that are talking to Ukrainian companies now to have the joint productions. And this war has shown how vulnerable we all are and how short the supply of some of the weapons is. And again, as the mother and woman and somebody who's a financier, of course, I wish we didn't have to produce more weapons, but unfortunately, in not so perfect world, when we have people who are not like us, and for some reason, instead of taking care of their people or growing food or growing children, they think and contemplate wars. We have to have, and we have to be equipped in order to prevent them from doing that. So this is investment in protecting of our democracy. So why, providing this support to us, and it's enormous amount, and we're grateful for it. But if you compare it to decreasing the capabilities of aggressive Russia, which is a threat to all of us, and it's also something that we're doing together, then it's not just an expense, it's an investment in our common security. And I think we have to explain it more to people. And the more we talk to people about it, who we talk to and explain to, the majority of them support it, and they say, "Oh, we didn't know that. This is a good thing to do. Let's." So I think, as any new public servant, because I only served in public administration for 5 years, and now 2.5 years in my diplomatic post. But I still think that as public servants and as diplomatic servants, we have to communicate better with people. We have to learn how to do it. We have to know how to explain it to them better, so that they can support what we ask them to support.
Indeed, and
Although it's very difficult, I have to tell you.
It is. Your answer reminded me of the famous Ukrainian poet Serhiy Zhadan, who once said that Ukrainians would rather invest money in culture, education, and social spending, but we have no choice than invest them into the defense sector. On my next question would be about the future outlook, and as the United States is entering the electoral cycle in 2024, and as we are receiving updates from the front line about the developments and how Ukraine's counteroffensive goes, my question will be twofold to you. One is, what is, according to your analysis, is the likely ending of the hot stage of the war? What are your optimistic and pessimistic expectations? And two, for those US friends and partners who want to help Ukraine to succeed, what should they be keeping in mind, in particularly for the next year?
The situation on the battlefront right now is, of course, very difficult. The summer campaign that our military started in June to liberate South and East, without doubt, is the most difficult military operation and the largest scale, the most wide military operation since the World War II. So the front line is very long. It's very well protected, and a lot of people are talking about mines and all the bunkers and everything that we see on TV when analysts are showing us. But also, I mean, the air superiority is still there on the Russian front. So it's a very difficult battle. And if you listen to Secretary Austin or General Milley or anyone or any former generals who actually follow and know what's going on and travel to Ukraine, they all say that we are very successfully performing in the summer campaign or this liberating operation. We're very deliberately moving and liberating, sometimes inch by inch, sometimes it's meters and kilometers. And yet in any of this, there was a reverse battles. So it's us liberating, and it's very difficult. And it takes all we have. It takes, all the people and people who are on the front lines, and we see how many wounded we have, and we see how difficult it is. But one important thing to remember, and that, of course, is we have to remember paired with constant attacks on the cities. So there is not a day when either Shahid drones or the missiles are not shot into Kiev or Lviv or Kharkiv. During the past 2 months, there is heavy attacks on Odessa, Ismail, all the port cities or near port cities. And we're grateful for all the air defense, and we have more now than we used to have. But we definitely do not have enough to have a cover everywhere. So unfortunately, we're losing people, civilians, every day. And but then I remember the famous quote of Prime Minister of Israel, a woman who was born in Kiev, actually, Golda Meir. There is a new movie now, who said that there is a secret to our fight. We have nowhere to go, we have nowhere to move. We don't have any other country. We know quite well now, and I think the whole world has seen What happens when we are occupied? We are killed and tortured. It's a genocidal war. And for us, there is only one way and only one attempt to survive is to fight. So that's why, you know, again, it's difficult. It's going to be more difficult before it will get easy. We will require more capabilities. We will require more resilience, probably during this winter, because we know what Russia did last winter, specifically targeting energy infrastructure, specifically trying to do the blackouts and blackouts without electricity during the very cold winters in Europe, in Ukraine. It's not only without lights, it's without water and sewage and everything else. And, you know, it's very difficult. I visited Ukraine last December when President Zelensky was also gathering us in 2022. It was a challenge, you know, I have to tell you. But then I'm very glad every time I go to Ukraine, regardless whether it's cold or hot or, you know, better days, everyone is resolved to stay the course. We all understand that there is no only one way forward. And frankly, the more support we can get, the more sanctions to Russia will be, the more decisive the world will be, the faster we can win. And the less we will need, because even now during the full-fledged war, the Ukrainian government is operational. The Ukrainian business is doing miracles. The Ukrainian banking system never stopped operating, even for a day. Ukrainian businesses relocated whoever could from the under occupation to Western Ukraine to Central Ukraine. Of course, I mean, we've lost a number of not only territories and physical objects. The World Bank estimates just direct losses of the real estate as of last February, February 2023, as $411 billion US. So it's not taken into account the dam that Russians destroyed and the, you know, the flooding and the environmental damage and everything else. It's just physically what has been destroyed during this war, during the first year of the full-fledged war. But, you know, we're still raising money, and the international aid only paying for the humanitarian aspects, to help IDPs, to the military expenditures. It's only Ukrainian money. It's only the taxes that we collect and the local revenues we use for that. So as soon as the war stops, we will not only start to recover, but we will again very quickly become self-sustainable. So the best way to spend less on Ukraine is actually to spend more on Ukraine now, so we can win faster. And frankly, you know, we see that when we get these capabilities, we liberate more and Russians leave. You know, they have been talking about the red lines throughout the 17 months. You know, the Kiev Oblast was the red line. Then the newly, where they had the sham referendums, you know, whatever they included into their constitution, as they say, while they were signing it, we already liberated a couple of villages, which they included into. Then the Crimean Bridge, for some reason, was the red line. Then Crimea was the red line. Well, you know, we've done it all. There is no red line. It's a typical bully. We just have to be decisive, and we have to move, and we have to push. And the faster we liberate all the territories, the faster we can move to the next stage. Discuss justice, discuss, you know, rebuilding. But, you know, first we have to get them out, or they can leave themselves. You know, this is every time Putin talks about peace and peace negotiation. I mean, he can stop this war in one day. If he orders his armed forces to stop aggression and leave from our territory, that's the end of the war. We never were a threat to Russia. We never intended to occupy Russia. We never, you know, that border is sacred border for us. As soon as they're out, we'll build a wall. That was a joke. Although with neighbors like Russia, wall seems like a good option. And we'll start thinking about how we continue working on our European integration and developing and healing, healing, because all of us are scarred by this war. Our children in Ukraine have lived 17 months in the basements. They have been taught sometimes several times a day. When they're in school, they have to go to the shelter. The families are separated and divided. It's a very difficult situation. And the faster we can get to peace, the faster we can return to some kind of normalcy.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I think we've covered a lot of ground and a lot of questions from the students that were submitted in advance. You already answered, but let me turn to some couple of questions that students also asked. For instance, Amy Heinstein from Alexandria asks, what is the most misunderstood aspect of the war from your point of view?
I think it's not the aspect of the war, but why the war started. And I think, again, because we were occupied by Russia pretty much for 400 years, with short periods of independence, like in 1918, and not a lot of people even know about it, that we were independent in 1918, like other Baltic states and Finland. We actually were together with Finland in the League of Oppressed by Russia People and became independent in the same year. But then in 1921, that was the last year when we lost the independence. But because this 400 years of occupation by Russia, the world learned about us using the Russian narratives. It's not that the world was looking for the Russian narratives, but because, the story is always told by those who win. And during the Russian Empire time and during the Soviet Union time, somebody else was telling our story. So when we regained our independence in 1991, first, not a lot of people knew about the history. Not a lot of people understood that for us, the struggle is anti-colonial struggle, it's a struggle for our independence. Not a lot of people knew that during the Soviet time, so many Ukrainians have been called Ukrainian nationalists just for wanting to speak the Ukrainian language, just for organizing the Ukrainian cultural studies, just for writing a letter to their relatives in the US or in Canada. And they were sent to Gulag just for that. In 1989, the last person was executed for treason sentence because of Ukrainian nationalism, just 2 years before we became independent. So I think because there was so many misconceptions about it, a lot of people did not understand in 2013. And that's why it was so easy for Russia to mislead so many people, to say that, oh, there was a real referendum, or the people in Eastern Ukraine are some different people and they want to live with Russia. This whole narrative of two Ukraines, of pro-Western and pro-Eastern Ukraine. Completely false narrative, which only started after the Orange Revolution in 2004, when Russians were shocked when they have seen that people of Ukraine went to the streets and revolted because the democratic choice, have been stolen from us. Because they tried to steal the electoral results from the President Yushchenko, and they tried to falsify the results. And people went on the streets, not because they supported Yushchenko, not because they supported, it was about the democratic choice. The democracy and freedom is something that is deeply rooted in Ukrainians. And I think even a couple of days before, a week before the full-fledged war, I was speaking at a number of occasions, and I was telling that we will not surrender, we will fight. And I saw how skeptical some people were. Russians clearly saw that their convoys and their tanks and machines will be met and greeted by people. They really believed. I mean, these first columns that went through my hometown from the Belarus, they had food for like a day or two, and they had their parade uniforms. inside the tanks. So they really were thinking that it's going to be a march to Kiev, and then whatever, the victory parade or whatever they were planning. But it's also, I'm very grateful to the Bush School that you actually are creating the new programs and getting new professors to teach it. Because surprisingly, during the Soviet Union, in all universities in Russia, in Russian Federation, foreign relations, public administration equivalent during the Soviet times, they studied Americans, they studied Japanese, they studied Poles, they studied everyone. They never studied Ukrainians. There was not a faculty on Ukraine. They truly thought we do not exist. And I think that was one of the, because everything else, I mean, when people learn and see, and so this underestimation of Ukraine and overestimation of Russia, just let us all recall, how did we call Russia? I mean, the second largest army in the world, this mighty nuclear, state that had to be around the table, because how can we, and this is the country now that travels to North Korea to ask for weapons or buy Shahid drones from Iran, as deadly as they are for us. But, let's just compare this situation to 2 years ago. And I think, there should be some lessons learned. So if anything, we should look deeply into Russia. There is something we still do not understand also, that Russian Federation, although it's called federation, is not really a federation, but it is comprised by many nationalities who are oppressed. How many of you heard about Buryats? How many of you heard about Chechens? Maybe because of the war, when they were killing them. How many heard about Yakuts, or all the indigenous people who are being oppressed, killed? They are not allowed to learn even their own languages. And if you look at the composition of the soldiers that Russians sent to Ukraine, which we just looked, they're not from central Russia. They are from this southern and then eastern parts. And we have seen, like it's a genocide of those small nations to actually draft and put them into Ukraine fight without any preparation. So, we still have to study more all of the regions. And it's not only about this region. I think it's a lesson learned for others. We tend to think about continents sometimes in the Western type of, but we should look at the individual countries, how different they are, individual nationalities, individual groups, and just, respect and study them and learn. And then we will know better how to live peacefully together, hopefully.
Hopefully so. Thank you very much, Ambassador. We've learned a lot from you tonight. And it was a fantastic conversation. We very much hope to see you again at the Bush School DC. But thank you very much for coming and joining us tonight.
Thank you. General, if I may.
Yes, ma'am, you may.
Yes, add also something that I don't know. I usually brag a little bit about our embassy, but I think especially in the universities, people could be interested in that, because we are located in Georgetown in a very historic building, which is called the Forest Marbury House. And it's a historical landmark built by General Forrest, who was a friend of President Washington, George Washington, in 1785. And in 1791, President Washington has been to our building. And there was a dinner there. And at that dinner, they decided on the boundaries of the District of Columbia. So literally, the District of Columbia was a little bit created in our embassy. And we invite everyone who would like to go and visit that historic room to contact Professor or Katerina from the embassy, and we would be more than happy to host you there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Madam Ambassador, we could be inspired by you all night. So thank you for taking the time. I have a small gift. The Bush School has been around for 25 years. And we just marked that anniversary. And so I'd like to give you a small
No, you have
coin
to give it
from,
to me.
yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
It's-
If everyone could please hold. Thank you. If everyone could please hold your seat and the ambassador will make her way onto her next engagement. You can imagine that she is a pretty busy schedule. So thank you very much. ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that you know,
What a
next
blessing.
Wednesday, we have another event here in the evening where we'll have a panel of some women in intelligence. And Honorable Sue Gordon will be part of that panel. And on October 19th, you would have an opportunity to hear from General J. Raymond, who is the general who founded and started the U.S. Space Force, that will also be here on October 19th. Thank you very much for being with us this evening. Thank you very much.
Я вас проведу. Дуже вам дякую, пані Оксана.
Дякую.
І будемо на зв'язку і щодо вашого запрошення, і
Так.
щодо фотографій.
Серйозно, якщо хочете, we are talking about the invitation. Get some groups together and bring